Yes, talk about aid
Hmm.
and US aid and different kinds of aid that come to the country in the masquerading as aid and its hidden agenda.
Well, there is one very well known example. They call it USAID. It's not aid, it's Agency for International Development, but they call it aid, right? Now, one thing they did when they wanted, when they diverted Mahavali, the initial intention was to make use of the developed land, irrigated land. 30% of the developed land was to be utilized for export crop farming. That was their plan. And for that, to promote export crops, USAID intervened and they formed an agency called MAD, Mahavali Agriculture Rural Development Agency, right. Now, through that agency they tried to introduce on a very large scale, they tried to introduce crops like gherkin, melon, baby corn and so on. None of these things are eaten in the country. They said these are high value crops. In fact, prior to that, or maybe middle way, 1996, there was a World Bank study or World Bank set of recommendations given to the government of Sri Lanka. It was called Non-Plantation Sector Policy Alternatives. The people who wrote it were two World Bank experts, Robert Hunt and Douglas Lister. Now, in their analysis, they said there was no growth in the non-plantation sector agriculture because the people were growing low value crops. Now, what they meant was they meant rice, food, vegetables and yams and fruits and so on, which were largely domestic food. And domestic food had to be of low value because the people were poor and it had to be produced at affordable costs. They said as long as land is utilized for low value crops, there wouldn't be growth in the economy, there wouldn't be growth in the sector. Therefore, they said it is necessary to shift away from low value crops to high value crops. And in that report, they also say efforts made for 15 years to get farmers to shift away from low value crops like rice to high value crops for export didn't succeed. Therefore, they set up this institution called MAD, which gave various incentives for farmers to grow, instead of growing rice and food and domestic food, to grow crops for export. Now, that was entirely financed by USAID and USAID was behind it, right. Ultimately, it didn't succeed. In fact, after many years of about 10-15 years, they found that not even 3% of the land was converted to export crops. People refused to do that because they wanted to continue to do their own food farming, though it was not very profitable. That is one example. Another example is after tsunami, USAID came in with assistance to build this Arugambe bridge. You know, the Arugambe is one of the best tourist localities, and they were to build a bridge, a very expensive bridge. It was a kind of exhibit. There was no need of a bridge. There was a roadway, but they want to build a overhead bridge like this, long bridge. And the amount of money they allocated for that purpose was 80 million US dollars. That was equivalent to the total amount they allocated for reconstruction of all destroyed houses of the fisher people, 80 million. So, meaning if they had not done this bridge, they could have doubled the amount that was devoted to construction of the houses of the fisher people. Now, that again was a USAID thing and they did it.
So, there is a bridge now in Arugambe?
Yes, I don't know whether they have completed it, but that's one thing that they went ahead with. Other tourism zone developments have stalled because of the war and other things. They might again revive it. but there was also a lot of protest. But the bridge they did. So therefore, it's always with their own agenda. Aid comes to get countries and people to do what benefits them. Now, it's always the case. Now, if you look at the history, somebody might say the British built roads to the hill country. True, but all that was done with exploited labor. It was compelled upon the people in the country to work, devote their labor and work on the. They had to pay their taxes. There were all kinds of taxes that people had to pay. In fact, I have read in some documents that they executed about 20,000 farmers for non-payment of these taxes. Also, therefore, it was exploited labor that was utilized to build the roads to the hill country. But the roads to the hill country were built not to benefit our people, but for their transportation of tea and so on. So, it's always with that kind of agenda. If you look at the World Bank's initial agenda of setting up the World Bank is called International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. The first phase was to reconstruct the war destruction. Now, why did they want to use their capital to reconstruct all this? Because infrastructure rebuilding was necessary for their capital to go in. So, they built roads and highways and electricity and even education and things when they need it, and to the extent that they need it for their own business. So, what we do is we get it as aid, they call it aid, but they are largely loans, and ultimately spend on their own agenda, on their own programs, not for us to do what we want. So, therefore, there is this big question, can we do without aid? I say yes, because if the poor people are to survive, they have to depend on their own capacities and their potential. If you depend on external capital, you have to serve the capital, and capital will not have an agenda for your benefit, right? They will utilize it for their own benefit. Therefore, you have to be as independent as possible from capital. Now, how do we do it? To make use of, if it is not capital, you have to count on nature. And Sri Lanka is a country where nature gives enough. We have enough sunlight, we have enough rainfall, we have enough soil fertility, plant diversity, seeds, and also historical experience and knowledge of the people for regeneration. So, these are things that we can utilize.
Okay, now can you talk a little about Cuba and the revolution that has taken place in Cuba and how today Cuba is standing in the world?
Yeah, I don't want to go into all details about Cuba. I am very happy about the direction and the policy positions that Cuba has taken. They have shown the world that one could stand and take things as they come. One example I would like to use about Cuba is what they did with the agriculture.
That's what I want you to point out. That's precisely why I brought up Cuba.
Right. Now, yes.
As an agricultural revolution. Right?
Yes. Now, when Cuba became independent or came into revolution, Cuba was a country, I am not extremely knowledgeable, but the little I know, it's a country of large plantations. The Spanish and so on had built large plantations, and these large plantations were inherited by Cuba after revolution. Right? Therefore, they are very dependent on crops like sugar. Now, also they had to do these large plantations. Now, they were doing it to some extent, but they were depending on US to buy their products, but revolution stopped that market, therefore, they were in a difficulty. Then came the Soviet Union and assisted them by giving them machinery and inputs and fertilizer and so on, So they were doing that, but then they had difficulties with Soviet Union